welcome to Half the Battle. Today is something of a departure for the show, as we will be talking about the G.I.Joe figure, just not one made by Hasbro.
This will be our first time looking at a Super 7 G.I. Joe figure. So meet Raven. This figure was released in 2023 with all original body parts, as far as I know, and is part of Super 7's Reaction G.I. Joe line of action figure collectibles.
There's a reason for that last bit of description.
Technically, this isn't a toy, even though it looks like one. The packaging makes it very clear this is a collectible for adults and not safe for children. I'm assuming this is to save money somehow. That's what usually motivates corporations. So it's not really an action figure, though it obviously is, but it's made with a different purpose in mind. Now, having said all that, is it unfair to compare this product to an actual G.I. Joe figure?
Yes it is. Am I gonna do it anyway? You betcha!
And the best figure to compare it to is of course the Strato Viper, since she was one. First, there's the size. They're both the same height, but Raven is noticeably thinner. Normally, I chalk this up to it being a female figure, but most reaction figures are pretty thin. The paint and plastic is matte, while G.I. Joe figures tend to be glossy. Detailing is, different.
Not saying it's better or worse, just different.
That's because they weren't trying to recreate a Strato Viper figure, but rather the Raven character from the cartoon that happened to be a Strato Viper. That means there's no unit patch on the front of the shoulder, but there is a Cobra patch on the side. And she has a nicely detailed hand grenade, something the Strato Viper lacks.
The biggest difference is of course the articulation.
There are no ball joints anywhere to be found, no elbow or knee joints. So the arms can move 360 degrees and the legs about 90 degrees. Yeah, they don't really bend backwards. The head can swivel, in theory anyway, but the popped collar prevents any real movement. Yeah, that collar is another difference. That is popped. That is anime character popped. The reason for the limited articulation, apart from the fact it makes the thing cheaper to produce, obviously, is that Super 7 based the entire reaction figure line on the Star Wars body construction to give people that nostalgic feeling for the toys of their youth.
I was gonna complain about this more.
But when you go back and look at all the toy lines of the time, Star Wars, Mask, Lego and Playmobil figures, hell, even He-Man where the figures were a lot bigger, there's no elbow and knee joints to be found anywhere. So yeah, fair of this company to go this way too. It's actually incredible how much of an exceptional line G.I. Joe was when it came to articulation.
So let's stop the toy comparison and judge the figure on its own merits.
And it's a great looking figure. They captured the look of the cartoon character, and it's a very nice face sculpt. The hair could have been a bit more detailed, but that's a small nitpick. She came with just one accessory, a small gun like the one she had in the cartoon.
Blast! Destro and his shoddy equipment!
Overall, I really like this figure, and I'm happy it finally exists. No thanks to Hasbro.
Now, this is just a small YouTube channel, so I doubt I have any influence in these matters.
But I did make a video about characters that should have gotten toys over 2 years ago that got a couple thousand views that included Raven, so who knows? If anybody knows somebody at Super 7 who could say how they pick their characters, that'd be great. And that was the only figure Raven ever got! Yeah, big surprise, this thing only just came out.
That means it's time to talk about the character, starting with the file card.
That's right, the Super 7 G.I. Joe figures even come with file cards. How cool is that?
Think of all the new information we're gonna learn, like her real name. Or her birthplace then? Okay, big help so far.
At least this seems to confirm Raven is a code name, not a real last or first name. Which seems lazy of the cartoon writers to just call a Night Raven pilot Raven. Maybe they thought it was fitting or funny. The card gives her a rank of E4 or equivalent, which would mean she's a senior airman.
Which makes no sense because all pilots in the Air Force are officers. And Cobra mimics the rank structure of the military.
I know I must be like the only person in the world to care about this, but if Larry Hama had written this card, she would have been a captain, as he made sure Ace was one. The body of the text on the card is just a brief recap of the episode she appeared in. That was In the Presence of My Enemy, and I've already reviewed it, so I don't want to say a lot about it again.
To give a brief recap of the brief recap,
she found herself trapped on an island with Slipstream, and they were forced to cooperate after coming under attack from battle android troopers and a monster created by Dr. Mindmender. In the end, she left Cobra to join the Joes, but we never saw her again in G.I. Joe until today. As for her actual characteristics in the episode, well, she was at first fiercely loyal to Cobra, to the point where it's not unfair to assume she'd been brainwashed through indoctrination. But as she kept getting screwed over on the island, it dawned on her Cobra wasn't so great after all.
Are we the baddies?
I joke, but it's actually a really good story and character arc like one you'd see in the comics. She was also a competent fighter pilot and ground fighter, a somewhat unusual set of skills for anybody in Cobra.
I want to end by talking about the packaging.
It deliberately looks a lot like the vintage G.I. Joe cards, and they did a good job here. The file card has a screenshot from the actual cartoon, while the front has some great artwork. It looks really cool and captures both the character from the cartoon and what she'd look like in G.I. Joe card art. It really does look great, and hey, they credit the artist, so well done Jason Edmondson.
Too bad my card doesn't look like that, but like this.
Yeah, the Amazon packaging method did not live up to my standards. Good thing I was planning to open this figure from the start, both to review it and for myself. And that was Raven. It's a great figure, and I'm happy to have it. But it could have been greater if Hasbro had actually made a toy of the character at some point with their standard articulation. Still, thanks Super 7 for finally bringing this character to life.
Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.
Let's go.